The BBC and BuzzFeed spoke to a whistleblower that revealed there could be an issue of match fixing in tennis games. Now, over the last decade, 16 players who have ranked in the top 50 have been repeatedly flagged by something known as the Tennis Integrity Unit, or TIU, over suspicions that they've thrown matches. Now, the big issue with this story is that the TIU got this information and they didn't do further investigations to ensure that this match fixing isn't happening. So let me simplify it for you before I get into the nitty-gritty and the details. So essentially what's happening is there are these big gamblers that are allegedly paying up to $50,000 to tennis players to basically throw off the match. Okay, so here, I'm gonna give you $50,000 and I want you to purposely lose the match. Okay, and so BuzzFeed and BBC did not release names of specific people, but they do have some pretty damning evidence and some damning files and documents that indicate that this is going on. So all of the players, including winners of Grand Slam titles, were allowed to continue competing. So that goes to show you that even though these people had some pretty hardcore evidence against them, indicating that they were doing match fixing, this entity didn't actually go after them and do further investigations. The documents we have obtained show the inquiry found betting syndicates in Russia, northern Italy, and Sicily making hundreds of thousands of pounds betting on matches investigators thought to be fixed. 3 of these matches were actually at Wimbledon. In a confidential report for the tennis authorities in 2008, the inquiry team said 28 players involved in these matches should be investigated, but the findings were never followed up. Tennis introduced a new anti-corruption code back in 2009, but after taking legal advice, we're told previous corruption offenses could not be pursued. So we have more information, but I want you guys to jump in on this.
I think this is really interesting. For a lot of reasons, but here's the thing. So you said $50,000. So for maybe a low-level tennis player, that is a lot of money, and that's maybe worth kind of, I guess, throwing your career for. But for some of the top players, people that were approached, now ESPN said that Novak Djokovic was approached to throw one of his games for $200,000, right? So that seems like a lot of money, but this guy's worth $90 million. So then it makes you question, okay, why are some of these players throwing their games, potentially ruining their entire careers for such a small amount compared to the big picture? And so I actually started talking to some of the TYT sports guys about why this might be. And so they think that maybe it is because, tennis is kind of known as like a gentleman's game, and it's supposed to be this prestigious thing where there's no, funny business. And so that's why they didn't kind of investigate it further back in 2008, and that's why they're not really doing that much now. And I think with this press, they might do a little something, but I don't know.
I wonder if they didn't do anything about it because they knew it would blow up in the media, and they don't want that negative attention. Right?
Oh, yeah. I clearly think that there's an embarrassment situation that's happening, but also if you think about it, tennis and maybe even golf are sports where there is a tremendous amount of plausible deniability that you can have if you are, corrupt or going to fix the game or throw the game, because it's very much about the individual and not having to worry about the team. Now, think about in tennis, if you're playing tennis, it's very easy to show that you made a stumble or a mistake, and kind of explain it away. And so I think maybe that's why people were able to take this risk, because you can have a tremendous amount of, well, I just stumbled, and it looks very convincing.
And also the people who aren't sort of the top players, like the Djokovic's and the Agassi's and things like that, they actually don't make that much money. So maybe a payout like $50,000 would be a lot for them, but for the top players, it still seems kind of crazy.
It does seem counterintuitive for them to do
like
it.
If we're talking like 25 million, maybe it makes a little bit more sense.
Maybe it's easier to throw. I'm trying to figure out what the incentive is.
I mean, you have to do a cost-benefit analysis if you're a tennis player or a professional athlete of any sort, because you're right, Hannah. You're throwing your career away in taking this small amount of money. So I don't understand whether there are other incentives involved, maybe there are other factors involved. Maybe they're just kind of over the whole tennis thing. Maybe they see their career dwindling as it is, and so they decide to make these decisions
Or maybe
anyway.
they don't think they're going to get caught. I mean, like tennis, you're barely allowed to like clap loudly. You know what I mean? This is a pretty big clap, okay? So maybe they just think like, okay, tennis isn't going to make a big show of this. Like I can get away with getting an extra 50K. I'll lose, whatever. I'll make a comeback.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right.
So Mark Phillips, who is a betting investigator, released a statement about this, and he says the evidence was really strong. There appeared to be a really good chance to nip it in the bud and get a strong deterrent out there to root out the main bad apples. But unfortunately, that is not what occurred. The exact opposite occurred. So the BBC and BuzzFeed News have decided not to name the players because without access to their phone, bank, and computer records, it's not possible to determine whether they may have been personally taking part in match fixing.
I think that that's the very reason why it happens.
Yeah.
I mean, that very much, it just explains that no one's willing to really go into it. So then why not throw a game? Because the chances of you getting caught are so minimal.
And one of the other factors is they said people were approaching them in their hotel rooms before the match, so maybe there isn't a sort of traceable way to see in some of these cases. We don't know.
Yeah. Well, here's the interesting thing. The officials behind tennis have the ability to access these records should they choose to investigate, but it seems as though they're not interested in investigating, and that's really the heart of the problem. Look, whenever there's money involved, there are people that will easily get corrupted, right? And so it's up to those who do some sort of oversight, those who actually are supposed to do the investigation, to do their jobs. And they didn't do their jobs according to this investigation or this expose by BBC and BuzzFeed. So we'll see what happens, but it sounds like it's kind of a virus that might really impact the tennis world. It might be tennis's performance-enhancing drug, if you know what I mean.
It does sound as if it's more widespread than just a couple bad apples, especially if we're all sitting here wondering what the motivation is.
Right.
Then there clearly are a whole bunch of other issues that are happening behind closed doors that we are not privy to, and that makes me think that it's a lot more rampant than it's even being shown now.